down to the health care bill. And, you know, he never once indicated that he was going to vote against the health care bill. And even though Obama did his executive order, which allegedly prevents federal funding for abortions, we all know that's nothing but a sham. And apparently they do too.
All right, when you look at the health care bill, that's one of the items on the Conservative Freshman Coalition site, and there's a link to that from your site, that you want to repeal the health care bill. How would you, first off, how would you go about that? And then secondly, what solutions would you work on for health care?
Well, it's certainly going to be a very monumental task. As you know, they tried to put wording in that said that the bill cannot be repealed, which I believe is fundamentally unconstitutional. But you're going to have to work with members of both sides of the aisle and do what's right for the people. I believe that three fundamental things should have happened before they even attempted to write a bill of this magnitude. Number one, you've got to have meaningful tort reform. Right now, malpractice law, even though it's necessary, we need malpractice law to protect patients and protect people like you and me, Tom. But the bottom line is it's weighted way too heavy towards tort attorneys. And as a result, we have physicians and healthcare providers practicing what's referred to as defensive medicine. And as you're very well aware, defensive medicine does absolutely nothing to improve healthcare, does absolutely nothing to increase efficiency of that healthcare, and does nothing to help the patient. The only thing it does is provide legal protections for the healthcare provider in the event that they're potentially sued. So you balance the playing field and decrease the need for defensive medicine. That's going to lower healthcare costs across the board. Next thing you have to do is you absolutely have to sell healthcare insurance as an interstate commodity, not using individual risk pools in the states like we do now. We all know that when you add volume, you get value in volume. That's why we go and shop at places like Sam's Club. That's why labor unions exist. They have value in volume. Why do we not want to apply that to the sale of healthcare insurance? You do that, the cost of healthcare insurance comes down. Then you look at small businesses. Small businesses, now there is a provision in the bill, but I don't think it goes far enough. Small businesses basically are not allowed to band together to buy insurance. Let them build insurance buying coalitions and increase the depth of those risk pools, which by definition will reduce the cost of premiums. Those are three things you can do right off the bat that decrease the overall costs of healthcare and healthcare insurance without costing the taxpayers a single penny. Now when you go and you look at the number of people who are uninsured and underinsured, the number has shrank, and it becomes a much more manageable problem. But this administration and Nick Ray Hall wanted to charge right in and do something historic. They wanted to do it quickly rather than correctly, and now we're left with a mess.
You've been, as you mentioned earlier, lifelong resident of this area, but this 3rd district is a very long district, and there's some areas that are pretty hard to get to. Through this primary campaign, how have you managed to get your name out in places like Greenbrier County, Mercer County, Mingo County, and so forth?
Well, it's been tough. I mean, basically, you look for opportunities to go and meet and speak with the people. Greenbrier County, for example, we received an invitation, I think it was back in March, it might have been late February, for what we thought was a bean dinner, because we were pretty sure there was a misspelling in the invitation. Turned out when we got there, it was not a bean dinner, it was in fact a bear dinner. So we we mingled with the locals and we had bear for dinner, which was actually pretty good.
Oh, wow.
But
that had to be one of the highlights of the campaign then, because that's good eating.
It was either that or the ramp dinner, which was pretty good also. But you know, you go out, we like, for example, we went down to Wyoming County and we only spoke to about 18-20 people, but you know, hopefully after listening to us speak, they liked what they had to hear and spread the word. But you know, you always wonder if you've done enough. You know, if money was not an issue, if the campaign coffers were bottomless, you could go more places, you could send more mailers, you could do more commercials. But unfortunately, raising money, especially in 3rd District, which is not a wealthy district by any stretch of the imagination, raising funds is tough.
Yeah.
And we were number 3 in the fundraising, although we weren't that far behind 1 and 2. 1 and 2 was almost neck and neck. And I believe, looking at the final numbers I've seen so far, I think we were roughly $10,000 to $12,000 behind 1 and 2. So we weren't that far behind them. But signage is expensive, and we didn't get out nearly as many signs as we'd like. We did get some radio commercials on the air. I believe WVHUs have been airing some of our commercials. And we did do some direct mailings, and we've also depended on some phone calls as well.
All right, today's the day, and we'll know here in about 12 hours. Well, we may not know then, but the polls will be open for about 12 more hours, and then we'll start to gather in who will be the Republican nominee to face, more than likely, Nick Joe Rahal in the West Virginia 3rd District congressional race for the fall. LeeBiasForCongress.org if you want to go learn more about this candidate. And Lee, thank you so much for coming in. It's been a pleasure getting to know you over the last several months.
Well, thank you, Tom. I feel like it's kind of come full circle. The very first radio interview I actually did with Ashley Stennett. I believe you were on vacation, and it just seems appropriate and fitting to have the last interview before the primary right back in the same studio. And you've been a very fair and gracious host, and I truly appreciate that. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you for coming in, sir. All right, 7:26. Back in a moment on the Tom Roten Morning Show. News Talk 800 WVHU.